Tell us who you are.
My name is Sonia Arrington. I'm the founder of MATV, Mothers Against Teen Violence.
First question relates to violence in Erie. It's been reported through all the media that Erie has a persistent violence problem. Do you agree with that? And if so, tell us about your view.
I strongly agree with that. We have a lot of different issues going on in the Erie community. The top three issues are gun violence, bullying, and now suicide. And we really need to come together as a community to try to rectify all these three major issues that's going on. And to me, one of the biggest part that is missing in our community is the spiritual aspect. Our children know nothing about church. And I'm just going to take you back to me as a child. I didn't have an option of not whether I wanted to go to church. My mama made me go to church. And if you couldn't go to church, you couldn't go outside. So we need to go back to don't give our children the choice of going to church. We need to tell our children, you're going to church because you're the adult and they're the child. Because if these kids grow up without going to church, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to go to church as adults. The reason why I'm still in church is because my mother made me and I brought up doing it. So that's why I do it now. If my mother hadn't made me, I probably would be one of those statistics where I don't go to church, but I do. So with that said the spiritual aspect, the churches play a very big part in the violence in our community. And the saddest thing to me is 99% of what's going on out there in our inner city is black on black. And I really stress that the black churches really need to take a stand against this violence issue because it's a very, very tough issue. But these are our children out here. And it should be us over anybody else that's rushing to the races trying to figure out what can we do as a community to stop what's going on.
We kind of led into the second question, what should we do? So I'm going to modify the question a little bit. If I'm a teen, young adult, and I go to church, what's going to happen in church is going to be a protective factor against violence, teen pregnancy, those kind of things?
Because when you go to church, you have mentors in church. Your pastor is a mentor. The deacons is the mentor. All the people that go to church should be mentored. Positive examples for the youth on how to handle negative situations and turn them into positive situations. And I'm not saying just because everybody go to church is going to mean that these problems are going to go away. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is at least if they go to church, there's a hope that one day these problems will go away. Because when you sit and you start to learn about God and different things, that make you think twice and change that negative mindset that you have into a positive mindset. And I'm going to use myself as an example. When I lost my son 3.5 years, almost 4 years ago, to gun violence, which he was shot 5 times and killed, if I hadn't have been in church, I probably wouldn't be sitting here doing what I do now. Because the only reason why I got through it, I'm not over it, I'm through it, is because of the grace of God. I prayed every day for strength and courage to continue to do what I do. Even though it's almost been 4 years, I still pray every day for strength and courage. Even though my son is not here, that wound is still wide open. But instead of doing something negative, I took a positive approach because I don't want any parent to feel the pain that I go through and my husband and my family go through on a daily basis. That wound is always open. So with that said, it's how you handle it. If you handle it in a positive way, then you get something positive done. That's what my organization, Mothers Against Teen Violence, is about. That's why I choose to help these kids, because I don't want them children to be a statistic like my own son was.
Talk about Mothers Against Teen Violence.
Mothers Against Teen Violence, as I said previously, I started it because of what happened to my child. And I'm a mother who loves all children. I don't care what color they is, what nationality, what age. You're somebody's child. And a lot of these kids, the biggest problem in our inner city is single parent homes. The fathers are either in jail or they're 6 foot under. And it's hard for a mother to raise a teenage son. A lot of these young men, the majority of my program, I'm going to tell you, since January to now, August 12th, I done had a total of 78 youth come through my program. 80% of them are court orders, but I open it up for the parents who see their child heading down the wrong direction but not have yet gotten tied up in our judicial system. Call me up. And we mentor these kids, you know, and my mentors are young men and young women who've been there, who've done that. You know, I have mentors who've spent 10 years in jail, 20 years in jail, and they changed their mindset. When they got out, you know, they say, hey, I'm not going back there. I'd rather spend my time helping another young man or a young woman so they don't go through the same thing that I went through. So a lot of these kids are just missing that TLC. So we reach out to these kids. Any issue that's going on in our community, we address in the LEAD program. So we have people come in and do presentations, you know, whether it's teen pregnancy, STDs, gun violence, bullying, whatever it is, every week we have presenters come in and we talk to the kids about these issues. We try to give them positive ways to end negative conflict. And another important piece to this is the educational piece. You know, if I formed a partnership with the Erie School District, because like I told Mr. Badams is, you know, every child that's lost out here in our community in the inner city, that's one less child sitting in your classroom, in your school. And so they had to come aboard with what we're doing because everything that happened in the neighborhoods, these kids are taking it to school. That's why we have so many issues in school. So us as a community, we all need to come together. The parents, the ministers, the people living in the community, we need to raise these kids together. You know, the saying, it takes a village to raise a community. We need to get back to that. You know, just because it isn't your child, don't mean you can't stop and say, well, you know, you shouldn't be doing that. Hey, they may curse you out, but at least you know you tried. And that's how I am, you know. Even when my kids were in school, I would go down the street, I see kids fighting, I would get out my car. My kids like, no, Mom, don't get out. Because I'm less than a parent to sit there and let somebody get beat up for what? And 9 times out of 10, what they were fighting about, it was stupid, you know. And see, these kids need all the help that they can get. And I really think us pulling together, uniting as one, putting unity back in the community, we can clean up the Erie community. I'm not saying it's all going to go away, but we can put a cap on it where it's tolerable. Right now, it's so out of control, you don't know what to expect.
August 16th, Friday, there's going to be a concert held at Gannon. And the information that came out of the Religiosity Summit says if a child spends 1 or more hours in contact with a religious institution doing a structured activity, that will reduce the effect of violence or change their thinking about being involved in antisocial behavior. I've been asked the question over and over again, what do you think is going to happen when kids show up? Like, what can one event do to change behavior? What's your thoughts on that question? Give it a shot. One
event can do a lot because we don't know what's going on in these kids' head. A lot of these kids do things just to fit in. You know, it's the peer pressure out there is really tough, especially in the schools. And if you can get one child to come in and sit down and listen and see what the church has to offer, the minister or the people in the church, they may say, well, you know what? I like this. You know, because our kids need to know about God, learn about God and different things. And I really think that plays a very big part in what's going on. So church is the missing link. You know, if you can let these kids sit in front of TV for hours and hours at a time, then I think you can take them to church for a couple hours. Tell them, look, it's only one day a week that I'm asking you to come to church with me. And I think the kids will say, well, okay, but don't give them a choice. Tell them. If they under the age of 18, tell them, you going to church, especially if they living in your house, you paying the bills, you buying their clothes. They got to do whatever you want them to do because that's how I run my household.
Final comments.
I really think that this is a great thing that you're all doing, putting this together. And I really hope the community comes out and support it, but I'm really aiming for the black community, okay, because this the black kids that we're losing out here. And I mean, you see people get on TV with their 5 minutes of fame saying how sick they are of the problem, but when you try to do things like you're trying to do, nobody comes to the table. So we continue to have the same problem. So if we want to try to resolve what's going on out there, we need to come together as a community. And this is a great start. And I thank you for doing what you're doing.
And I thank you.
Okay.